Hello and welcome to my channel, The Way What Is Truth. Remember to like and subscribe and comment down below. Now, in the run up to Christmas, I thought it would be a really great idea to do a video about the first miracle that Jesus did, okay? And of course I'm talking about the wedding in Cana in Galilee. Now, I find it very, very interesting how the first miracle he did wasn't walking on water, it wasn't restoring sight to the blind, it was not helping the lame walk, it wasn't resurrecting someone from the dead. It was something quite humble. But it was the first display of his glory. Okay. Now I'm going to read through this and add little bits of input here and there, and I'd like you, the viewer, as well, to comment down below and give me whatever opinions you have, or perhaps if you know something about this event that I'm not aware of, you've got something to add, and feel free to do so. Okay, so John 2. On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." So, in my mind, she must have just walked up to him, tapped him on his shoulder maybe, or just sort of leaned over or something and said, "They have no wine." Or perhaps she was sitting next to him and she just found out from word of mouth or something, I don't know. I don't know about you, but when I read the Bible, I like to try and picture myself as an onlooker in that particular passage of the Bible, to try and imagine what the sights and the smells of what's going on around me, like what it would have looked like. Okay, so yeah, definitely refer to my video on journaling and picturing ourselves in the Bible, because I think if anyone read John 2 in the Bible and tried to imagine themselves at the wedding in Cana, that would be very, very interesting. Yeah. Anyway. Let me read that again. Now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding, and when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." Now this is an interesting sentence that he came out with, "woman," but he wouldn't have said that in the sexist ways, if saying, "Woman, what are you doing talking to me?" No. Nothing like that. He just said, Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me?" That's all. My hour has not yet come. So he knew what was going to happen in the future at the age of 33 when he died on that cross for all of our sins. My hour has not yet come. So he wasn't perturbed by what she was saying. He's God in the flesh, so of course he's not going to be easily swayed by what people are saying, but he's fair and he's just at the same time. And he has a sense of humour, don't forget. Anyway, his mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now, you could imagine her doing that, can't you? As if to say, well, okay, I've planted that seed in Jesus' head, and now he's going to think it over. I think she probably knew that he was going to do it. Who knows? Maybe Jesus was chuckling to himself. Perhaps he smiled and said, yeah. Perhaps we just had a rapport, Mary and Jesus, and she knew he was going to do it. Or she was like maybe 80-90% certain that he was. So again, Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he say." His mother said, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now there were set there 6 water pots of stone. Now these were just ordinary stone jars. They were nothing special, okay? According to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. Okay. Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water," and they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast," the guy who was leading the feast, yeah. And they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom, and he said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, but when the guests have well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept the good wine until now. Now, just in case you've just heard me say that and you don't quite understand what I'm saying, let me sort of say it in plainer English, perhaps, because you'd be surprised at how many people struggle to understand certain passages in the Bible. So, and he said to him, every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests get drunk, then they bring out the inferior wine. You know, as if to say, well, if they're tipsy, they're not going to know the difference. It would be a waste to give the best wine at the end, wouldn't it? But you have kept the good wine until now. So it was very, very unusual. So when he turned that water into wine, he must have made it the best wine, the best wine that was possible, I should imagine. This began the signs of, and then it says, this beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee and manifested his glory. This was the first display of his glory, which is why I'm reading this right now in this video in the run-up to Christmas. And his disciples believed in him. So this sort of laid the foundation for their faith in Jesus. It was like a bedrock for them, if you like. It was like a milestone in their relationship with Jesus, his disciples, yeah. After this, he went down to Capernaum. He, his mother, his brothers, and his disciples, and they did not stay there many days. Now the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem, and he found in the temple those who sold oxen and sheep and doves and the money changers doing business. When he had made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money and overturned the table. So Jesus had anger, but he had a righteous anger. Okay, there's a difference between our anger and his. And he said to those who sold doves, take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of merchandise. Yeah. Then his disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house has eaten me up. He lost his temper because of his zeal for his house. Yeah. So the Jews answered and said to him, what sign do you show to us since you do these things? Jesus answered and said to them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Then the Jews said, it has taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days? But he was speaking of the temple of his body, which is very, very interesting. So let me read that again. Then his disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house has eaten me up. So the Jews answered and said to him, what sign do you show to us since you do these things? Jesus answered and said to them, destroy this temple. He was referring to his physical body. And in 3 days I will raise it up. See, he knew what was going to happen. Of course he did. Then the Jews said, it has taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days? Now just imagine this, that he was speaking of the temple of his body. Isn't that remarkable, folks? And just think about how he knew what was going to happen. He had a mission to carry out on this earth. God in the flesh came down to earth to set the ultimate example in his behaviour, in his speech, you know, by doing away with the laws and the ways of the Old Testament to bring in the new, you know. And then he goes on to say this. Therefore, when he had risen from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this to them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Jesus had said. So he was thinking about the future. When he was speaking words, he knew what would be remembered, what came out of his mouth, and what wouldn't be remembered. Isn't that remarkable? You know, he was always thinking, he was always many, many steps ahead of everyone else. Now when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover during the feast, many believed in his name, and when they saw the signs which he did. But Jesus did not commit himself to them, because he knew all men, and had no need that anyone should testify of man, for he knew that what was in a man, what was in man. Yeah, so in other words, he didn't need man's praise. Now, what can I add to what I've already said? Not a lot, really, to be honest. I'd very much like to hear anyone else's input about this passage of the Bible, John 2, all the way to the end of John 2. And let me just have a quick read through. Yeah. You see, I've talked about God's anger is righteous. Okay, now I've got to mention the Old Testament because one of the most common arguments against the Bible and the validity and the authenticity of the Bible, and indeed God's moral character, is that atheists and agnostics and just people in general mock the Bible and they ridicule it because of how harsh and despotic God seems to be. They call God a murderer, jealous, a homophobe, all this stuff, but it's just his anger. He had to deal with these people. You see, these people aren't facing up to the reality that mankind is wicked and sinful. I mean, that seems a bit old-fashioned saying that these days. People think, oh, what's all that about? You know, I don't believe in absolute truth. I don't believe in the God of the Bible. Okay, whatever. When Jesus comes back to the earth, you'll see that God is holy, God is righteous, God is just. We all have small lives, and at the end of those lives, it doesn't matter what we blab on about, what we say and do, what our legacy is, what people remember us by after we've passed on. We're all going to be at the judgment seat of Christ, okay? A lot of people believe that when you die, and that's it, there's nothing. But there was always more to life than just this. We all have a soul. When you look at yourself in the mirror, my friend, there is more to you than just this physical body that you see. You've got a soul, you know? There's more to us than just a physical body. We're not just animals, contrary to what mainstream education teaches. Anyway, that's enough about all that. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I tried to make this video special, but not too long as well, in the run-up to Christmas. And I just find it remarkable, once again, that the first miracle he did wasn't restoring sight to the blind. It wasn't walking on water. It wasn't helping a paralysed man walk again. It wasn't raising someone from the dead. It wasn't anything fantastic or marvellous like that. It was simply turning water into wine. And I think he obviously knew what was going to happen and he went along with it. He wouldn't have done it unless he wanted to do it. There's no way that he would have done anything that Mary suggested to him unless it was his will and the Father's for it to be done. Because I and the Father are one. Yeah, he never did anything unless the Father permitted and wanted him to do it. Okay, it's as simple as that. So I thank you for watching and I hope you have a great Christmas. I will be doing other videos, I should think, anyway, unless something happens or something in the run-up to Christmas. I may do another video perhaps on the nativity, you know, his birth in the manger and all that and everything, you know, the 3 wise men, and I may go over that as well in the future. Anyway, bye-bye and take care.